She kicked down my cabin door with the fury of a storm, splintering wood and scattering shards across the floor. Her designer heels clattered on the wreckage as she barged in, waving her phone like a badge of authority. But the smug grin slid off her face the moment she locked eyes with the woman in my recliner, because the person she had just stormed in on wasn't me alone. Sitting calmly in my living room, sipping coffee, was the state attorney general of this state. Karen had no idea she had just committed multiple felonies in front of the one person who could put her in prison. And the best part? She was live streaming the entire thing to thousands of her followers. 6 months earlier, I never imagined I'd end up at the center of such madness. Back then, my life was simple, almost perfect. I'd finally retired after 30 long years working power grids across 3 counties. The one treasure I looked forward to every morning was this cabin, passed down from my grandfather. Built with his bare hands in the 1960s, it sat proudly on the shore of Clearwater Lake, surrounded by pines and wrapped in the smell of clean water and wood smoke. My grandfather always said, "The land chooses you, not the other way around." And I believed it. The dock we'd reinforced together when I was 12 still stretched proudly into the water. The porch creaked like an old friend. Solar panels hummed softly on the roof. Off-grid, quiet, mine. I thought I had escaped the politics of the world, tucked into this slice of heaven. But peace never lasts when power-hungry people come sniffing around. The trouble began the morning she arrived. Delilah Cromwell, though everyone quickly learned to call her HOA Karen, rolled into our lake community in a pearl-white Escalade with vanity plates that literally read, "Rule 1." She was dressed in $1,000 blazers, wearing an HOA president badge like it was a sheriff's star. From the start, her mission was clear: transform our rustic lakeside neighborhood into her own private resort empire. I first saw her on my dock at 7 in the morning, heels tapping across the boards like a judge's gavel. By the time I opened my door, she had taped a violation notice to my screen. According to her, my dock was unsightly, damaging property values. The fine, $500. Compliance required within 72 hours. I laughed at first. My dock had been there decades before her HOA was even formed. But Karen didn't back off. Within days, more citations came. My solar panels were suddenly a hazard. My grandfather's carved porch railings? A safety issue. Even my vegetable garden became a visual nuisance. Every paper slapped to my door came with larger fines. When I confronted her politely in the driveway, she stood there, hands on her hips, telling me, "Everyone on this lake answers to me, sweetie. Ask the Hendersons how well fighting me worked out for them." The Hendersons, elderly neighbors who had mysteriously decided to sell their cabin after 23 years, suddenly didn't look like willing movers. My stomach sank. This wasn't just some crank with a clipboard. This was a campaign. When I refused to pay, the harassment escalated. First came the letters from high-priced lawyers threatening liens against my property. Then came Karen's Escalade blocking my driveway, idling while she scrolled through her phone like she owned the road. At night, I'd find my mailbox spray-painted with words like, "Comply or leave." My security camera even caught her license plate as she drove away at 2 in the morning. But when I called the sheriff, guess who showed up? Deputy Chad Cromwell, her nephew. He shrugged, said it was probably kids. No report filed. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just annoying, she was protected. The inspections began next. Building inspector, fire marshal, environmental officer. Each one showing up at my door with a complaint they were forced to investigate. My cabin passed every test. Pop had built it to last. But every visit created an official paper trail, painting me as a problem property owner. Meanwhile, Karen was on local TV painting herself as a brave citizen protecting the community. She even stood on my dock, talking to the camera about dangerous structures, while neighbors whispered behind my back. It felt like a noose tightening. But my grandfather always said, "The truth is in the records." So I went to the courthouse, digging through dusty surveys and deeds. What I found stopped me cold. My property didn't just end at the water's edge. It extended 50 feet into the lake. That dock wasn't trespassing. It was right in the middle of my legal lot. And here's the kicker. The HOA wasn't even established until 1998. 35 years after Pop bought the land. In other words, they had no authority over me at all. Karen's entire campaign against me was smoke and mirrors. But smoke can still choke you if you're not careful. Word spread quietly among neighbors. Couples who had decided to sell admitted they'd been harassed with violations until they couldn't afford to fight anymore. Fines, emergency fees, threats, each family pushed out, their cabins scooped up by cash buyers. I followed the money and saw it plain as day. HOA fees funneling into shell companies owned by Karen's relatives, landscaping projects that never happened, storm damage reimbursements for storms that never occurred. Fraud, organized theft, and my land was the next prize. I started documenting everything: citations, inspections, threats. A friend from my old union connected me to Chuck, a lawyer who told me something that lit a fire under me. The Attorney General's office was investigating HOA corruption across the state. They were looking for witnesses, people with proof. My evidence could be the missing puzzle piece. Suddenly, the fight wasn't just about me. It was about stopping a criminal empire. The plan was bold. The Attorney General herself agreed to meet at my cabin, using it as ground zero for an investigation. Hidden cameras were installed, FBI agents prepared to step in. We were setting a trap, and Karen, blinded by her obsession with control, was guaranteed to walk straight into it. Sure enough, she made her move. Days before the meeting, she launched a new smear campaign online, claiming she was the victim of political persecution. She arranged a live stream, telling her followers she was about to expose corruption. Her plan? Burst into my cabin during my meeting, record everything, and paint herself as a whistleblower. What she didn't realize was that law enforcement had been monitoring her calls. We knew every step before she made it. She thought she was setting the stage for her big victory. She was actually rehearsing for her downfall. The morning arrived. I sat with the Attorney General in my grandfather's recliner, papers spread across the table, hidden cameras recording. Outside, the crunch of gravel signaled her arrival. Karen's Escalade skidded into my driveway, cameras rolling, voices shouting. Her heels pounded across my porch. Then, crash. The door exploded inward. She charged inside, phone high, live streaming her rant about government corruption. The Attorney General calmly stood, showed her badge, and said, "Mrs. Cromwell, you've just committed multiple felonies in my presence." Karen froze. Her live stream audience watched in real time as her confidence crumbled. Before she could even form a sentence, FBI agents stepped through the doorway. "Karen Cromwell, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, and criminal harassment." The cuffs clicked shut. Her phone clattered to the floor. Thousands of viewers witnessed the downfall of their so-called hero. The HOA tyrant was finished. 3 months later, justice was served. Karen was sentenced to federal prison, ordered to repay hundreds of thousands she had stolen. Her husband, tied to the scheme, resigned in disgrace. The HOA was dissolved, replaced by a volunteer association where neighbors worked together instead of living in fear. Property values soared, families returned, and for the first time in years, peace returned to Clearwater Lake. Now I sit on my porch, the same porch where this war began, and watch the sun dip low over the water. The cabin stands strong, just as my grandfather built it, humming with solar power, wrapped in silence. No more threats, no more harassment, just peace. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the little guy wins. Sometimes David really does beat Goliath. So let me ask you, what would you do if a power-drunk HOA Karen tried to take everything you loved? Drop your story in the comments. Trust me, you're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe because the next HOA tale will leave you just as shocked.